into plowshares of peace. And so I stand here today saying what a time it is for those of us who have served this country and this region in our respective areas, whether in sports or in diplomatic service or in academia or any other field. What an honor for us to harness all that we have gathered in these years the Almighty God has given to us to deliver and to give. As it was said earlier, palipo na wazee habaharibiki jambo. In other words, where elders are, nothing goes wrong. And the question has been, so many things have gone wrong in our region. And the question is being asked, you elders, where were you when these things happened? And so today I say, with the authority that has been given to us and the right to serve our country in that capacity, we are prepared to take our position and be given the ability to answer the question when tomorrow somebody comes and says, where were you? We will tell them the elders have been there. Persons who have been set aside to do work are there to do it. And so, with all humility, and I say this is the apex.
That's just one of the speakers at the third annual State of IGAD region address, talking about regional integration, trading instruments of war with instruments of peace, and talking about religion being paramount in addressing the security challenge that we have in the Horn of Africa. Just to mention but a few, Southern Sudan is having issues when it comes to security, DRC as well, and also our brothers in Somalia. And still in Mombasa, for that report, Kamcha Menza is keeping a keen eye at the White Sands Hotel. And from the White Sands, we move to the Serena Mombasa, where Njue is live with the Senators' Seminar that was just inaugurated a few moments ago.
Good afternoon, Ben Troy. We are still at the Serena Beach Hotel, where 68 senators are attending the post-election seminar induction, and this is a seminar that seeks to train parliamentarians both at the National Assembly as well as their staff and the Senate on matters parliament procedures and how they can conduct house businesses during their tenure. Now, we have just concluded the opening session, and it is here that the Speaker of the Senate, Amason Jeffakingi, emphasized the need of being a united house whenever they are facing issues of oversight or they are discussing bills in the house. There is need for them to present a united front. Now, one of the matters of contention that has come about is the matters of the constituency development funds, the oversight funds, as well as the ward development funds. Now, at each and every level of government, from the ward up until the Senate, every leader is demanding or requesting funds rather to have to help them administrate, and the buck stops with the Senate to approve such pleas from different arms of government. Now, the problem with that is they think that the National Assembly does not have a cordial relationship with the Senate. They don't want the National Assembly to twist them into approving the funds and also enshrining them into the Constitution until they go through the proper process of enshrining these particular funds. They are requesting an oversight funds, the senators, to help them govern and see that the government is working in place in whichever arm of government, be it the executive, be it the governors, be it the constituency level. Every level, the senators are requesting for a fund. Up until now, they are yet to arrive at a conclusive figure as to how much they want to be enshrined in that particular fund. However, they're still in talks, and one of the resounding plea from the speaker was there was no need to engage in a battle or a fighting contest or a shouting contest as witnessed the previous week with the members of the National Assembly while at an induction seminar here in Mombasa to demand for these funds. So he's calling for a united front and a sit down in whichever matter that is presented before Senate. So the senators are demanding for a fund, and this conversation has to start from the National Assembly. However, the National Assembly are saying they will not go over the matter of the Senate until their constituency development fund is approved by the Senate. So it is a back and forth. However, the speaker is saying this matter will be put to rest if both houses sit down and get an amicable solution. Now, the senators have mixed reaction whether or not the constituency development fund or the Senate oversight fund should be enacted or should be given to these offices. They have mixed reaction. Some are for it, some are not for it. But they're saying this is a conversation that did not start with the 4th Senate. It started previously. But what they're saying is in this Senate, they are willing to do it, and because the matter is still at the courts, they are saying that maybe they will have a win with the National Assembly, who keeps on derailing this matter. So we have just engaged with the senators here who have given us our thoughts, and of course at the top of the hour we will give you a comprehensive story on what exactly they are demanding from the National Assembly and what the National Assembly is demanding for the Senate. But a resounding plea from the Speaker of the Senate is there is no need for a shouting contest, but they can sit down and have an amicable solution in all these matters so that they can be able to be helped in to discharge their duties during the 5-year tenure. So we will keep you up to date in our top of the hour bulletins on this matter and how this whole induction post-election seminar induction will unfold. But for now, I hand it back to you, Ben Troy Njue, in studio.
Thank you so much, Njue Karisa from the coastal city of Mombasa during the 4th Senators induction meeting there, and most specifically looking at the post-election report and also haggling over funds, and especially when it comes to the national government, CDF, and also they're talking about their oversight fund, which each of the two houses will rely on each other so that they may come up with a good proposition. And as she has said, we'll be keeping tabs on what transpires from the city of Mombasa. In other news, detectives from Lari Sub-County have arrested 4 students from Kijabe Boys High School who are suspected to have torched a dormitory, destroying property and goods worth thousands of shillings. The incident coming just about a week since schools reopened for the new 2023 academic calendar. Responded to the calls from the students of Kijabe, called upon the Ministry of Education to carry out a reshuffle in the school, saying there is laxity in the school administration after more than 6 attempts last year. Security agencies led by Lari Deputy County Commissioner and Head of Criminal Investigation Officer Eunice Maingi carried out a thorough search, narrowing down the arrest to 4 suspects. The incident comes barely 1 week after they reported back to school where the Form 2 students class, which was also used as a dormitory after last year and was used as a dormitory, was reduced to ashes. Efforts to reach the school principal by the press was futile as it fell on deaf ears despite being the 6th case in a span of 2 years.
Kukawa na makelele, tukakuja kuitika. Tukakuta dormitory moja imechomeka. Akisema watakula kuku wanapikiwa immediately. Watakula pizza wanapikiwa immediately. Hakuna discipline. Na discipline inakuwa na head teacher. Head teacher ni mwenye anatukana watu hapa. Sasa mtu kama mimi nikiitwa stupid na head teacher na parent na other incidents hivi, wanafunzi wanakimbia na huku wanashikwa na huku wakipanda, hizo anafichanisha hivi. Na tunaomba serikali na the education ya rali, you transfer this teacher. Kama hapa juu kuko hivi, huku chini kuko aje?
I'm very clear. Anything your ministry it handle, and we have not exhausted any investigation. Kwa hivyo we don't have anything to say. Sawa?
Ni wangapi wameshikwa?
And in another story touching on schools, over 300 vulnerable and disadvantaged children are set to benefit from a school feeding program after well-wishers and the county government of Nakuru joined hands to contribute to the initiative aimed at improving performance through hunger eradication. Speaking during the launch of the program at Sidai Primary School in Subukia, Feeding Feature CEO Peterson Gidenji said the program will help uplift their academic performance and also ensure retention of children in schools.
We identified children in a school where I was heading who are going hungry and sometimes very sick, and once we take them to hospital, you find out that they have missed 3 meals and they have gone 2 days without a meal. So after the first intervention, we saw that it's something that we can do for other schools.
So whatever somebody has, we put it together with what we have, and it makes the meals sustainable. They can be part of changing their own community, lifting themselves up out of a difficult situation so that they can support their children and support themselves into the future.
Sisi kama wazazi tumekuja kuona wakati walikuja na kutayarisha mambo ya kulisha watoto lunch hour. Tumefurahia na tumeanza kusoma mengi kuhusu ukulima.
In other news, Kenya is set to hold the first Africa Media Festival that aims to address existing challenges facing the industry. The festival is coming at a time the industry in Kenya is going through economic turbulence that has led to numerous layoffs attributed to the COVID-19 pandemic. Stakeholders who attended a pre-conference meeting called for broader discussion on how to make media profitable to be able to absorb economic turbulence.
If you look at most of the breaking news today is being done by bloggers, traditional media is automatically threatened and is being pushed out of work. So the question is what needs to be done, and I'm hoping that this Africa Media Festival is going to be out to find solutions and especially to propose policy briefs.
We've seen a lot of layoffs and significant brain drain in the media industry. We have seen some key talent being laid off and also leaving the media industry to go and work for other organizations and in other sectors and provide much more job security. So this is a conversation that we need to have. Who is going to be left in the media to ask the difficult questions?
The stories that we can share that are from here to the world are fresh. They're new, they're perspectives that have never been told before, and in many ways they're going to be the defining stories of our continent in the next 10 to 20, maybe 50 years. And so this is the time for us to be actually heard, for us to be collaborative, and also for us to be widening our horizons to move the stories of Africa, especially an African people, to the rest of the world.
In other news, residents of Trans Nzoia County have vowed to support the move by the government to protect water and its infrastructure ahead of Thursday's World Wetlands Day. The locals, led by the Water Resource Users Association, urged the government to reclaim and protect the water catchment areas and water sources. Experts say more than 50% of wetland areas have been destroyed in the western region, putting pressure on River Nzoia, which is the main river in the region.
As the world seeks to commemorate World Wetlands Day Thursday, residents of Trans Nzoia County decry what they termed as wanton destruction of major wetlands by unchecked human activity in the area. The residents, led by the Water Resource Users Association, have urged the government to reclaim and protect the water catchment areas.
Serikali imechukua hatua iangalie kwamba polisi wao wakiingia kusaidia sana kuona dams zote na chemichemi zinalindwa hasa kisheria na askari.
people growing sugarcane and many other crops. And this means if concerted efforts are not done, these wetlands will actually disappear at an alarming rate.
Trans-Nzoia County National Environment Management Authority Director Tana Ambassa said River Nzoia is at risk due to degradation of its source on the upwards.
Iko momonyoko kwa ardhi na kwa wingi sana inatoka katika sehemu za juu ya hii Nzoia River. Na hii inatokana na vile tumeharibu hizi sehemu chepe ambazo zinajulikana kwa kuchuja maji.
He said the continued destruction and pollution of catchment areas will cause water crisis in the region, causing food insecurity, leading to human-wildlife conflict. Experts say 60% of wetland areas, according to their research, has been destroyed by human activity.
Moving on, students from poor families in Kiambu sub-county who sat for last year's KCPE examinations are set to get scholarships from Ministry of Education, Jomo Kenyatta Foundation and Equity Bank Foundation, a program dubbed Elimu Scholarship so as to join Form 1. Parents and guardians of the less fortunate kids pass through a 15-member committee that involves church reps, Nyumba Kumi and chiefs and sponsors in a bid to have inclusive vetting.
Able to identify the most needy, the 11 scholars, out of a very rigorous process with a board, with a committee of 15 members, and we've been able to present that to Equity Group Foundation for consideration for the scholarships. The Ministry of Education has indicated that the Form 1 scholars has to report between 6th January and 13th. So we are ready. We have completed the selection process and all the hampers are ready. So it's just a matter of them picking and reporting to school as scheduled. It's a comprehensive scholarship. So they are provided with everything they require for their studies in school. The hampers are there. The transport will be there and everything else, including revision materials. They will collect from the bank here.
And now to conservation, where Kenya National Highway Authority is in the process of planting 20,000 trees between Mtwapa and Kilifi, in line with President William Ruto's directive of planting 15 billion trees in Kenya in the next 10 years. The initiative will help mitigate the adverse effects of climate change and help in greening Kenya.
There is plan to plant 20,000 trees, and we want to have a culture of tree planting. From here, we'll be able to move on and ensure that, since Kenya National Highways Authority has a lot of land in terms of road reserve, we shall green them, and these trees will act as carbon sinks that will be able to mitigate the effects of green gas emissions.
Now, countries in the Horn of Africa need to forge a common front to tackle terrorism that continues to pose a major form of transnational security threat. The Intergovernmental Authority on Development Head of Security Sector Program, Abebe Mulune, said member countries should develop a regional counter-terrorism strategy and joint reporting systems on improvised explosive devices. He was speaking in Mombasa at the closure of a two-day security sector forum on regional cooperation and coordination against transnational security threats.
There is also specific recommendation which were made with respect to the identified threats. For instance, develop a regional counter-terrorism strategy, offering trainings and capacity buildings, joint reporting systems of improvised explosive device, which was suggested by Somalia. These knowledge products will contribute to the overall peace and security strategy of IGAD in general and member states in particular. Once published, this document, they will also serve as a reference.
In other news, the government is seeking partnerships with development partners to help in reduction of teenage and adolescent mothers. Kisii Assistant County Commissioner McDonald Karama says like-minded organizations ought to participate in public awareness sessions where citizens can engage openly to end social stigma.
According to the Ministry of Health, 1 in 5 adolescents aged 15 to 19 are already mothers or pregnant with their first child. Rights organizations now agree that a strategy is required to tame the vice.
Council, the community leaders, or train the community leaders to cascade down the message to the other people. 2, working with the parents or guardians to make them understand that these children, this girl did not go for this particular pregnant.
It also emerged that stigma and a lack of confidentiality by teachers on the adolescent mothers in schools are partly to blame. As such, the government is encouraging parents, guardians and the community at large to stop labeling the young mothers but help them.
To make sure that we assist our young mothers, young adolescent mothers, so that they can have a life, so that they can have a chance to live and to prosper in this world.
We have also taken up by giving school uniforms to boost the esteem of these children, simply because once they look new in good uniforms, people may respect them.
Alan Auko, Lunchtime News.
And at about 26 minutes past the top of the hour, we are taking a quick breather. More news on the other side of this break.
To get Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 as your skiza tune, dial star 811 star 967 hash.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not in your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5 to 6.
To get Proverbs chapter 3 verse 5, dial star 811 star 967 hash. Star 811 star 967 hash.
Unclaimed financial assets include bank accounts, insurance policies, and other financial assets belonging to people just like you. Don't let your assets remain unclaimed. Take a few minutes to check and see if you have any unclaimed financial assets. www.ufaa.go.ke, dial star 361 hash or visit Huduma Center near you. Labda umeomoka na ujui? The Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. Receive, safeguard, reunite.
Cancer is a leading cause of death in Kenya with significant physical, social and economic consequences. The National Cancer Institute of Kenya, together with its stakeholders, will hold the National Cancer Summit from 2nd to 3rd February 2023 at Safari Park Hotel, Nairobi. The goal of the summit is to take stock of the cancer response in Kenya and to inspire accelerated collective action across all sectors. The event will be live on KBC Channel 1. In addition, the National Cancer Institute invites members of the public for free cancer screening and other government services at Kasarani Primary School from 2nd to 4th February 2023.
It's the DFB Pokals round of 16. Mainz against Bayern.
Musiala, he's dug it out beautifully.
Onisido back in. Alexander Herk. One Bundesliga side has to go out. Mainz have never reached the final. Bayern have been there more than any other side.
And Kimmich! A crisp finish.
Only one side can go through, it's going to be a tough fight.
At KBC Channel 1, we put people at the heart of events with our captivating weekly news features. Every day, we are breaking new grounds with informative, entertaining, and inspiring human interest stories. On Mondays, 9 p.m., we have The Cabinets. Tuesday, 9 p.m., we get inside the barracks for military tales. We delve in the world of cinemas and theater each Wednesday night. For the young and industrious, make a date with us every Thursday at 9 p.m. Fridays are dedicated for My Culture. On Saturdays, we go back in time for History in Perspective. And on Sundays, we get to know the process of how things are done and made. KBC Channel 1 News features a whole lot of wonderful viewing experience.
Welcome back and thanks for keeping me company. Moving on, the Council of Governors has urged the national government to release 425 billion shillings as the county's equitable share revenue for the financial year to 2023-2024. Council of Governors Vice Chairperson Ahmed Abdullahi said the council is dissatisfied the National Treasury's failure to build consensus on county equitable share. The Council of Governors say the proposed 380 billion shillings by the National Government Treasury will not be sufficient to sustain the running of devolved units. Speaking after a consultative meeting to deliberate on the annual division of revenue between the Council of Governors and the National Treasury, Wajir Governor Ahmed Abdullahi said the meeting failed to resolve the dispute over the allocation of funds to counties.
The National Treasury has allocated county governments Kenya shillings 380 billion for the financial year 2023-24. We hold a strong view that this is not equitable in view of the following factors. One, the shareable revenue is projected to increase by Kenya shillings 374 billion for the financial year 2023-24, out of which only Kenya shillings 10 billion has been allocated to counties, representing a meager 2.6%, with the national government allocating itself Kenya shillings 364 billion of that increase, which represents 97.33%. A careful analysis of the draft budget policy statement indicates a considerable increment in the share of revenues for functions that have been largely devolved.
Locals in Eastern Region are now worried that the Privatization Bill of 2023 will open floodgates for corruption. Locals who took part in a stormy sensitization exercise held in Machakos County, wondered why the bill was being hurried without adequate public participation.
Locals from Lower Eastern are now questioning the manner of the public participation exercise on the Privatization Bill of 2023 is being undertaken.
The time frame you are supposed to give around 90 days so that many people can be aware that these guys are coming here to talk to us.
Organizers of the event held at a Machakos hotel were put to task to explain how less than 200 people turn out from a participation meant for people of Kitui, Machakos and Makueni counties.
We were here to sensitize members of the public about the Privatization Act, but we realized that there was absolute misunderstanding on the role of us here, and they introduced the issue of certain transactions.
Residents of Machakos who stormed the meeting also wondered why it was only pastors who were invited, yet the meeting was a public forum. The locals called the government to emulate best practices used elsewhere in the world on how to privatize public entities and punish those who brought such institutions to their knees.
It's good for the government to avoid technocrats who can lay down strategies on how to remedy the problem affecting their proper management or proper running and the making of profits. Now that we have some good companies performing there and some organizations, did you benchmark and see that you have a comparison about the state corporates and the private states that have been privatized, how they perform?
Frederick Parsayo, Lunchtime News.
And in other news, Pope Francis has embarked on his 5th visit to Africa. His visit starts with the Democratic Republic of Congo, and he will later proceed to the southern Sudan. The pontiff is expected to plead for peace in the two countries, both wrecked by decades of conflict. It is the first time since 1985 that a pope has visited the DRC. In his 6-day trip to DRC and South Sudan, Francis is expected to hold talks with leaders in a bid to restore peace. The Pope has planned to visit war-torn Kivu region, where millions have been displaced, but he postponed the visit due to a muscle strain that has him forced to use a wheelchair in recent months. And in business, farmers in Tana River County are calling on the government to expand the irrigation schemes in the area and start more to tap the large arable land there. They believe irrigation schemes would help unlock the area's food production potential. Here's Frederick Moki with the details.
Tana River County, which has the longest river in Kenya, is known for disasters such as floods and drought. The region, however, slowly emerging as a food basket thanks to irrigation. Investors are now flocking the county to do large-scale farming.
Chakula huku ni nyingi, mahindi, mchere, hata tunakosa pahali tutauza. Naona kama tu nitakuwa mimi peke yangu. Wakati nilianza kulima nami niliambia watu huku kuna mashamba. Kujeni tulime mchele, huku kuna mashamba. Sasa watu wamejaa huku di.
The Tana scheme pumps water from the River Tana, distributing it to a network of 250 kilometers.
We are operating at almost full capacity in the scheme, which is 5,000 acres, which is installed with the irrigation infrastructure. But the total scheme area is 12,630 acres.
Tana River, which hosts the Hola rice irrigation scheme, has a new breed of rice in the market, the Komboka rice. Mercy Wangu is one of the investors here engaged in large-scale farming.
Hii eka yangu hapa ni 4 na niko na ingine 3 ninaotesha. Kwa hivyo jumla niko na eka 7. Hii nikitoa naendelea na ile ingine. Tunaendaga hivyo. Kilimo ya huku Tana River ni kuendelea.
However, hundreds of other farmers at the scheme grow rice, sunflower, maize, green grams, onions and tomatoes.
Nimelima sunflower eka 3 na nimebahatika kupata around 2,000 acres.
Kuna wakati mwingine tunalima mahindi na kama saa hii tunalima pojo, ambapo inatupatia mapato mazuri, inatusaidia. Kwa hivyo tangu kilimo yanze, nashukuru.
Mahindi tunalima mahindi ya mbegu, tunalima mahindi ya commercial. Saa hii hapa haya mahindi mnayoyaona ni ya commercial.
Farmers say the project has transformed their lives through income and food production.
Naweza mwambia hapa siki kitu tunataka hapa kwanza ni maji mingi. atuletee maji mingi.
They are, however, calling on the government to open up more irrigation schemes in the region to help counter food insecurity.
There is a lot of potential in Tana River, and like what people have been used to as areas where there is only conflict. There is a lot of production which can be done here.
Frederick Moki for Lunchtime News.
After that story, we are crossing over to the University of Nairobi Wangari Maathai Institute, where there have been a climate smart agriculture seminar there, and Benson Rioba, my colleague, has been keeping tabs with what has been transpiring there. It's a two-day event, actually. Rioba?
Thank you very much. You're coming to you live from Wangari Maathai Institute here in Lower Kabete, where we have been following up a 2 days, or rather a 3 days workshop on matters climate change. Now, joining me now to give us a brief overview about this meeting, I'm joined by Dr. Oliede Ajay from the Global Center on Adaptation. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Please briefly explain to us what adaptation entails.
Thank you very much. The climate is changing. That's what we should know. The time that the rain pattern, the rainfall patterns, for example, have changed drastically. What happened 20 years ago, 10 years ago is not what's happening now. That affected so many things. The time the farmers have to plant, the yield that farmers get. So these are issues, the impact of climate change. But then adaptation is how do we support people to respond, to cope with the changing climate. The climate is changing. And we have to change, or climate will change us. So we better change before the climate changes us. So adaptation is how do we take proactive measures to respond to the changing climate. That's what it is.
Maybe a recurring theme for most participants in this meeting, they have been talking about lack of funding in maybe measures to, as the adaptation is well invested in by the private sector, by both the private sector and the government. So what should be done? What's the funding gap in this adaptation?
Thank you very much. The one I work for, the Global Center on Adaptation, produces every year what we call the State and Trends on Adaptation. It was produced in 2021, 2022. And one of the key findings of this study, which is actually led by GCA, but with so many institutions across the globe, shows that the cost of action, if you want to work on adaptation to help the African continent to be adapted to climate change, is estimated to be $15 billion per annum for the whole continent. Now, the cost of inaction, if you don't do anything, if you leave it business as usual, they have also tried to estimate and monetize that, and it is estimated to be $210 billion for the same year. So what that simply means is that the cost of adaptation, the cost of taking action to help people adapt in the continent is just very small, less than 10% of the cost of not acting.
210 billion shillings. Where will you lose this money? What are the key
$210 billion.
Where are the key sectors that we might lose a lot of money investing in adoption?
Climate no longer just it's a developmental issue. A lot of farmers will lose because, the cost of hunger, the cost of lack of food. We know what it means. And somebody said just this past few days, he said, climate change is stealing food from the table of the farmer. So you lose in terms of agricultural sector. You lose in terms of the infrastructures with flooding, which increased flooding, which means a lot of brings quite a lot. And of course, you see a lot of livestock, animals dying. Issues of water, it imposes extra burden on women who go out to fetch water who don't have access to pipe-borne water. When I was growing up, we used to go in the nearby stream to fetch water for the household use. But with climate change and the dry of some of these streams, that means people have to go further before they could have access to water. There are quite a lot of implications.
Okay, apart from waiting for the national government and maybe development partners to chip in, what should be done? What's the alternative maybe investment or maybe funding for climate change adaptation?
Yes, apart from national government, there are also international opportunities like the Green Climate Fund is there, where there are quite a lot of money that a lot of countries can tap and access to. There's Global Environmental Facility could provide some funding. But beyond national and this big international funding, there are also big opportunities and opportunities from within the private sector that can also contribute to this, because they are affected in one way or the other. I'll give an example in the field of agricultural sector. Some of this private sector have installed equipment. They have set up factories like agro-processing factories, right? Enterprises. They rely on agricultural production for their raw materials. So if climate change impacts on productivity and the productivity is low, that means the opportunity for this private sector and the machinery that they have installed to be able to get raw materials to continue to run their industries will be impacted as well. So the private sector is also implicated. Yeah, they're also involved. There's an opportunity to tap into private sector funding to support adaptation. Of course, to do that, it has to be something that makes sense to them. It makes business sense to them for them to put in their money. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, before I leave, I have to tell you that Kenya is among 18 countries that are listed to receive 25 billion shillings to mitigate against the effects of climate change. Well, we'll be briefing you about the happenings and the resolutions of this meeting once it's concluded in our subsequent bulletins. Back to you.
And we are looking forward to that. Benson Rioba live from the University of Nairobi Kabete campus, the Wangari Maathai Institute there. They are talking about climate financing. 1.5, slightly over 1.5 trillion shillings, Kenya shillings, that is being given to Africa to mitigate climate change. Africa being one of the least polluters of climate and environment when we come to the global scene. And in other news, tension over scarcity of cash has worsened across Nigeria, with millions of Nigerians denied access to their savings. From the agony of failed electronic money transfer to the pains of staying endlessly on queue to use an automated teller machine, thousands of households are groaning amid cash scarcity, even as many have run out of essential supplies. Details of this and more in our news from around the continent.
Amid the untold hardship, the traditional cash points bank tellers have suspended operations as they have no cash to dispense, both old and new notes. Top bankers say they are wary of possible sanction by the Central Bank of Nigeria. Hence, they suspended the cash payment. After several days of standoff with the House of Representatives, in which the Speaker had threatened to issue an arrest warrant on the Apex Bank chief, the CBN governor allied fears that the all Naira notes will no longer be tenable after expiration of the February 10th deadline for the Naira swap policy. Elsewhere, Tanzania Commercial Bank's net profit rose by about 400 billion Tanzanian shillings last year to surpass the 1 trillion mark for the first time in Tanzania's banking history, thanks to the government's pro-business policies. An analysis of financial statements of commercial banks that have released their 2022 financial statements shows that over 1.164 trillion Tanzanian shillings was garnered in profits last year, a massive leap from slightly over 760 billion that was registered in 2021. The analysis focused on first-tier lenders, which together account for over 95% of the banking sector's profitability. They included NMB Bank PLC, CRDB Bank PLC, Standard Chartered Bank, NBC Bank, Exim Bank, and ABSA. Finally, conflict and political unrest in Northeast Africa due to civil wars along with climate change are fueling a famine that is causing displacement, loss of livelihoods, and disruption of food production and food supply chains. Nearly 1 in 4 children under 5 in those parts are suffering from chronic malnutrition. In an appeal for increased assistance for the food crisis, U.S. Ambassador to United Nations blamed the combination of COVID-19 and climate change for the rising threat of famine. She announced an additional $4 million in U.S. food assistance to combat the suffering.
Further afield, PayPal is shedding around 2,000 jobs or 7% of its workers as it becomes the largest big tech firm to cut costs. The online payments company says it was forced to make the decision as it faced the challenging macroeconomic environment. Here are the details of this and other stories making headlines from across the world.
PayPal's announcement follows tens of thousands of layoffs by technology giants in the last month alone. This year, Google's parent company Alphabet, Amazon and Microsoft have announced major job cuts. At the start of this year, Amazon announced it planned to cut more than 18,000 jobs because of the uncertain economy and rapid hiring during the pandemic. Also this month, Alphabet said it would shed 12,000 jobs, while Microsoft said up to 10,000 employees would lose their jobs. Last week, Swedish music streaming giant Spotify said it would cut 6% of its about 10,000 employees, citing a need to improve efficiency. Meanwhile, ExxonMobil Corporation posted $56 billion net profit for the quarter ended 2022. In a report, the company said it took about 6.3 million per hour last year, setting not only a company record but a historic high for the Western oil industry. Exxon's results far exceeded the then record $45.2 billion net profit it reported in 2008, when oil hit $142 per barrel, 30% above last year's average price. Deep cost cuts during the pandemic helped supercharge last year's earnings. Exxon said it incurred a $1.3 billion hit to its fourth quarter earnings from a European Union windfall. Exxon said it incurred a $1.3 billion hit to its fourth quarter earnings from a European Union windfall tax that began in the final quarter and from asset impairments. Finally, Intel Corporation has made broadcasts to employee and executive pay a week after the company issued a lower than expected sales forecast driven by a loss of market share to rivals and a PC market downturn. The reductions will range from 5% of base pay for mid-level employees to as much as 25% for the chief executive officer, while the company's hourly workforce pay will not be cut. The company has also lowered its 401k matching program from 5% to 2.5% and suspended merit raises and quarterly performance bonuses.
Let's now shift gears to matters sport, where Algeria and Senegal will face off in this year's CHAN final, set to be played this Saturday at the Nelson Mandela Stadium. Algeria beat Niger 5-0, while Senegal defeated Madagascar 1-0 in their respective semi-final matches. Elsewhere in England, Newcastle United are through to the Carabao Cup final after beating Southampton 3-1 on aggregate.
He's through again, Ayman Mahfouz scored a brace as Algeria thrashed Niger 5-0 to qualify for this year's CHAN final. In the other semi-final match, Pape Diallo scored the only goal in the 5th minute as Senegal beat Madagascar 1-0 to set up a final match against Algeria on Saturday.
Something from this game.
Meanwhile, Niger and Madagascar will face off in the third-place playoff match on Friday night. In England, Newcastle will face the winner of tonight's match between Manchester United and Nottingham Forest in the Carabao Cup final after overcoming Southampton 3-1 on aggregate.
Oh, Willock has dropped off. He's got room left side. Joelinton on the outside. That's where the ball goes. Then back to Willock. Then Joelinton back down the line for Willock to run and take on Lianco. Just outside the area, Willock through for Almiron. The cutback. Here's a chance for number 2.
In tonight's semi-final second leg match, Manchester United will host Nottingham Forest, having won the first leg 3-0. In Italy, Matteo Darmian was on target as Inter Milan beat Atalanta 1-0 to reach the semi-finals of the Coppa Italia.
Still Çalhanoğlu, Lautaro Martinez and Darmian!
Very well, we've come to the end of KBC Lunchtime News this Wednesday afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us. Of course, for more news, we're keeping tabs with all the latest happening around you. And also, we are keeping tabs with what is happening in Mombasa, the seminar that we have IGAD. We also have the senators and also the MPs who wrapped their seminar there. So, for more news, log on to www.kbc.co.ke. Also, check out all our media or social media outlets. My name is Njue. Lensa Odingo has been our sign language interpreter for these live newscasts. You have yourself a wonderful